Welcome back to our channel where we unravel the mysteries of tech jargon and to make it easy to understand. Today we are diving into the world of REST APIs, and as we continue with our series, we're going to look at a powerful tool called Json Web Tokens or JWTs. So what exactly is a JWT? Imagine you want to access a task management API. Once you log into that application, the server gives you a special token. This token is like your digital identity card, but instead of having your name and your photo, it is a string of characters containing encoded information. What do I mean by that? So JSON token uses a JSON format, hence the name JSON Web Token. It contains a payload, which is basically information about the user or their access rights encrypted into the token. Besides that, we also have a header, which has two parts, usually the algorithm used for signing it and the type of token which we are going to use. And in this case, it's JWT. And finally, we've got the signature there. And that's where the magic is, because the signature, we're going to cryptographically sign this JWT. What it means with this signature, which we have done here, is this is tamper-proof. If anyone tries to mess with the token, the server will know and it won't accept it. And this makes JWT incredibly secure for transmitting data between the server and the client. So what happens to the mechanism here? You would see that there's a function there called login or register. Then we've got four other functions here that get the task, create, and so forth. So when I log in successfully into my API or into whatever API, they'll give me a token. And if I want to get all the tasks within that API, then I would have to send that request plus the token. Then I will be able to get the task, create a task, and I am going to do update and delete. So what are the pros of using a JWT? First of all, it is going to enhance security. By doing this, it means we only give access rights to people we know, and these people are authorized. So only people who are authorized are going to access our APIs, and we're going to prevent unauthorized access and potential data breaches. Number two is we're going to promote stability and performance. The token will contain all the information necessary for a request, so you don't have to query the database to get that information. And this will technically reduce the server's load time, and it will speed up the response times. And lastly, JWT supports stateless authentication. As we know, RESTful APIs hinge on the fact that they have to be stateless. It means each and every request needs to contain the information necessary to carry out that function. So if we have something that supports stateless authentication, it means that a JWT token will carry all the required information within the token itself as we make our request, and that makes our application stateless. But enough of theory. Let's see how we can get deeper and how we can dive into our API. Now, we've been building an API, and if you're joining us just now, don't worry. We'll still walk you through it, and I'll provide a link to the starter files. All we have is basically an endpoint that allows us to get all tasks, get by ID, create a task, update a task, and delete. So if you go to our Swagger here, I can say get me all tasks. I can say try it out and execute. What this will do is it will go ahead and it will get me all the tasks. But what is happening here is whoever has access to my URL can access my API. But I'd like to give it to the people I trust, the people I want to use the application. So how do we bring that? Now, one thing I've noticed with JWTs is the code is tedious. And if I'm to type it word for word, you would end up with bugs or typos. So what I'll do is I'll provide the startup code as well as the what I call the companion, which has the code and the steps which we're going to take. And our first step is we need to install the package that gives us the window to the JWT. So we need the bearer itself, and this bearer will give us access to the JWT. So let's go ahead and right click, manage Nuget packages. Then we can look for that package, and this is a .NET 8 application. So we're also going to use the package that's meant for .NET 8. So you see this is 8.0.4. We're going to accept that. So app is ready to handle some JSON Web Tokens. But for the case of demonstration, I'm not going to go deep into keeping passwords, and we're going to hard code the password, and we'll do that when we get to the part where we deal with the identity framework. But for now, we'll just do a few things. So we want to create a class in models. We'll call this user. We should just demonstrate the users. who are going to be given access to our DB, to our API. So I have a class called user, and it has just 3 things. And like I said, how we handle password is we don't store passwords in plain text. We use hashing, but that will be done in the identity API lesson, and which will be coming, I think, shortly. So we have the user. Then we need to have settings that we're going to use for JWT. Now, I believe in writing software that's maintainable. So we're going to use what we call the options pattern, or we're going to use what we're going to hard code, not hard code, but we're going to strongly type our class which has a setting. So we're going to have JWT settings as well. So these settings will be used to create our JWT configuration. So for now, we're going to have just 4 things. This should be enough. We'll have what we call the secret key, and this key is what we're going to use to sign. And one of the biggest challenges with JWT is if somebody has this key, then it becomes a breach. So that's the corner of it. But how you store this key is very key. The issuer is us, our API. The audience is whoever is going to use our API. And the expiring minutes is we want the token to expire, because if it stays for life, then somebody will have access to it for life. So it has to expire. Then we need to find a way to give our application these settings, because if I put my secret here, then I have hard coded it. So we need to find a way to put our configuration. So we're going to use the app settings.json to put our configurations. So, and you will see that the configurations, I'll put a comma there and bring it in. The configurations are just identical to whatever is here. I want to strongly type it here. So in my case, I've put 30 minutes as my expiry. It could be shorter, I could make it 5 if it makes you comfortable. This is our issuer. I'll leave it as it is. This is our secret key. Of course, you need to put something here that's more than 32 characters, but that's so strong. So that's why you replace it with your secret key. This should never be shared. So we've done that. Then we have to configure, because we want to use JWT in multiple places in our application, then that's where the dependency injection container comes to place. So we want to register our JWT centrally into our program.cs. So we can bring it where? Just make sure it's before the build, because that's where we build all the services and everything. So I'll type it and I'll walk you through it. We brought it in here. We're saying on our services, add authentication, and this authentication would be of JWT Bearer defaults, and these are just qualifiers to it. We want it to validate everything, stuff like that. It's pretty much straightforward. And from there, we want to create a class, because we need to give people the token. We need to generate the token. So we need to have a class that will assist us in generating the token. So what we'll do is I'll create a folder called services. So folder called services, services, and within that we can have the JWT service, and I'll walk you through it. So for our class to create a JWT, it has to have access to our settings, which we have put here. So let's find a way to link our class, which was JWT settings, to our service which creates. So I'm going to copy and paste, then I'll walk you through the what's happening and what are we doing there, what and what. So it should be pretty much straightforward. So what are we saying here? It's saying, first of all, in a JWT service, one of its dependencies would be the settings class, which is this guy. Okay. Then we'll inject that into this. Then we'll say that, where do I get these guys, the secret, the issuer? So I'm going to say, when I'm going to use the configuration, which is a build.net function that gives me access. So I'll say, in the configuration, go to the section called JWT, which is this guy, and get for you, and get the and pass it into the service. So what will happen is this will have whatever is here, basically that. Then we're saying we want to generate a token, and for us we're going to have a few claims. For now, we'll just put the ID of the user and the username so that we know what claims they have. We are getting the secret key here, again from here. And once we get that key, we are creating a symmetrical security key there. And once we get that security key, we're going to hash it using 265 algorithm. And once we hash it, we're going to have the credentials. And we want to have a token descriptor that will take in the claims we've created, the time it expires, which is in our settings, the credentials which we've created over there, the issuer, which we have, and the audience, which are here. And once it does that, there's a function called create token. And it will create a token that is specific to that user. And we will know that user has access to all of that. So that's what basically this class will do. But since we want to use this class in multiple places, then somebody might argue to us that we need to register that class in a DI container. So we'll go to program.cs class, and we're going to say, okay, fine. We would like you to acknowledge the presence of that class. So whenever you use it, it will know this is a class. Ideally, you'd want to have an interface, but since this is just us focusing, keying in on the JWT. So we do have that. Now we need to have a login model, because we want to create an endpoint called login, which was here, this login. So it needs username and password. So we need to have the login model that will allow us to have that. So let's add a login model, which is username and password. And I keep putting that warning there that for demonstration purposes, I'm putting the password here. Again, subscribe, put alert so that when that video comes, you are good to go. So we'll have that. Then we'll need to create a place where we can have this login. So that will be a controller. So let's go to controllers. I'm going to add a controller and make sure it's an API controller. Yeah, you can easily select the MVC there. Okay, so let's call this login. Login, you can call it authentication, whatever makes sense with the use case. And within this, remember, for us to log in, to authenticate, we have to create a token. So this also will depend on the JWT service, as we will see shortly. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to bring it here. And there'll be an error, I think. We don't have an error. Okay. So, all right, let's put something there. So these errors are there because of the functions I've been put. So we need one to validate user, we need one to get user from credentials. And I do have these functions here. Basic functions. So in a real world, you'd want to have your logic that the user is going to okay, sorry, let's put login there. Login that username. Okay. Username, login the password. Login the password. In real life, you're going to be going to an actual database and retrieving those credentials. Again, we'll do that, so don't worry about that. So what we've done now is created that login. So what will happen is, first of all, we'll check, is the username valid? So you'd go to identity, ask it'll tell you this guy exists. If it exists, then authenticate using the password and the username they've given. And once they've done that, then we can just generate a token based off okay, first of all, we'll get their credentials, which is just getting ID and the username. Then we're going to generate the token, then we'll give them the token. So this token would be their identity to use the other guys like get and this guys. So what we can do now is run it and see if we've done anything worthwhile. So remember, it's admin and password 123. Okay, Swagger loads, and we have that login controller there, and it says login. So we'll say admin password 123. Then we execute that, and once you do execute it, you see that it gives you that token. So this is your digital identity. So one might ask, if I go to get and I try it out, well, I'm still getting my tasks, right? So what's the issue? So for you to lock this endpoint and make it not accessible to the outside world, it's now as simple as going to anything you want. I can go to this get and just add a decorator, and I'll call that authorize. It means at this juncture, you can't access this one except when you have the token. So let's run it. Now if I go to get tasks and try it out, it will say 401. 401 means no authorization. So it means now this is locked, and whoever wants to get that needs to have a token. So since we're using Swagger and it does not come with a default way to give it the bearer token, we're going to add a few lines of code that will enable us to do that. So Swagger gen, I'm just going to copy that all the way down to there. Then we're going to go to the dependency injection container and locate Swagger gen and copy this. And it's a handful. So it's here. Add Swagger gen. This is just docs. I'm just putting my name and whatever API we're doing there. But this is where we're enabling the Swagger to give us a place to put our JSON bearer token. So now I'm going to run this one more time, and we are going to see if it gives us access to that endpoint. So I'm just gonna go to the controller, copy the password, and once it loads, I'll say login, try it out, and I'll say admin, and I'll put the star one password 123. And once it gives me this, I'm gonna copy that token and I'm gonna add it to my request. So you put bearer there and the token, then you click authorize. So what happens now is it has that session. So when I now hit get all tasks, it will send with that token. And you can see there's a lock over there saying this thing is locked. And if I execute, it says what? It says base error invalid token, description, the audience is invalid. Okay, let's check that out. So that error, I figured as we were giving it the parameters, we forgot to give it two things, which is our issue and audience. So these things happen. Sometimes they happen, but we ought to have those two. So for the sake of what we're doing here, I'll add it there. Here, I'll add it there. Right. Now let's run it one more time and see. So I will go there and copy the password, login controller, password 123. Then I'm going to log. First of all, I'm going to do it without, so that you see that it's giving a 401. Then I'm going to log in, so that you don't see it as if I rigged it. And we're going to do like so, and I'm going to log that in. And when I log in, you see the logs will be there. Now the logs won't be there until I put the bearer. Sorry, so I'll get the token, come to authorize, and I'm going to put the bearer authorize, and we see that there are logs there. Now if I do it one more time, then it should go. Now it's saying error authorization false. Let me try to copy it properly up to there. Then let's log this out. Then let's say bearer. Let's close, and let's run it one more time. Get execute. I think I had copied it wrongly. Then you see that you get that, and you see that in our request we have something called authorization bearer. So because of that, we were able to access any other subsequent. So if I want to protect all of these guys, they get the post. All I'll do is add authorize. And if I said I want to do it for the whole thing, then I can come on top there and just say the whole controller should be authorized. We can even go as far as putting a role. Like I said, that will come in the identity. Now I've got one question for you before I close this video. We said the token expires. So what happens if the token expires every 2 minutes and I'm still using the API? There has to be a way to get a new token. But if you get a new token, then we have to force the user to log in again. That's where we have the concept of refreshing tokens. So that will be the next video. So subscribe, share, put notifications so that you don't miss that video. And thank you very much. If this has been valuable, kindly help this channel on Patreon. We need support, your monetary support. It keeps us going. It keeps us gives us time to do this free content. Thank you and happy coding.